Hello, everybody. I'm here today with John Cunningham. He's the partner and co-founder of collegeweekends.com. Hey, John, welcome to this week's Business Spotlight.
Hey, Kelly, excited to talk to you today. Really excited about today.
Excellent. I'm so glad that you could spend some time with us. So let's just get right to the questions.
Yeah, that sounds great.
So, John, tell me a little bit about your business, collegeweekends.com.
Well, we started this business a few years ago. My brothers and I would go to different college towns, and one of the things that we really wanted to maximize the experience when we went to a college town. So, for example, you have Airbnb, you have VRBO, other vacation rental platforms. One of the things that we wanted to do is provide kind of an all-encompassing suite of products and features that would really help people not just plan their trip, find a good listing, but really find good, cool things to do in that college town. And so that led to College Weekends. We launched it a couple years ago. Perfect timing, right before COVID. So if you're familiar with college towns during that time period, really you saw what was a very challenging time to launch a business like this. So we were fortunate, though, that we kept operations lean and really focused on what kind of features and functionality that we could make our platform different, unique, provide value for both renters and owners. My wife and I own a couple short-term rentals, so we knew some of the pitfalls with Airbnb and VRBO and some of the other platforms. And so we wanted to make it both user-friendly from an owner perspective, but also from a renter perspective. And then from a renter perspective, as I mentioned, one of our focus areas is we're consumers. Let's look at what would be interesting, what would be helpful as we go to a college town. We could be alumni, we could be a fan, we could be going to a location that we've never been. We can be a parent of a student. We can be a prospective parent of a student going on tours. And then again, if you look at all those different demands and kind of customer groups, we fit those. My wife and I are all those different categories. So we really took it from a customer perspective and what would make those, what would make the experience that much more enjoyable and kind of maximize that. And again, if you look at college towns in general, they're unique, they're full of energy. They have different cottage industries. So like the University of Virginia has wineries, breweries right outside, has history. So how do you bring that all to life with providing some great listings for users? And so as part of that process, we wanted to fundamentally change the experience for the renter experience in terms of really being able to provide kind of a one-stop shop of things that they could access while they're looking for listings or lodgings in college towns. So we've been excited. It's been a fun ride.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. And then right before COVID, it probably could have been named College Ghost Towns, right? But gave you time to figure it out and ramp up a little bit during the process. So excellent. So what's been some of the biggest issues you've had to overcome?
Well, I think, you touched on one. I mean, there's sometimes market dynamics like COVID, like geopolitical, like, what we're facing, a quasi-recession here, that always are out of your control. So COVID, obviously, we could do nothing about in terms of, no one expected it. It came, impacted so many different small businesses, big businesses. Yeah. So how do you respond to that? So I think one of the things that we've done is really tried to keep our costs in line, efficient, don't overspend, kind of build up, scale up as your business scales up. So that's the first and foremost. And then as you encounter those challenges, what can you learn from that? So COVID was a great opportunity for us to get some feedback. We had some live customers. You saw some changes in the industry where folks were looking more at extended stays because they could work in a hybrid situation. So those were opportunities for us to learn more about our business, get more feedback. As I mentioned, we launched right before COVID. And I say literally right before. It was right around the March timeframe of 2020. And as we got feedback from customers, it helped us kind of revamp and really add some cool features and functionalities to our platform based on that feedback. So we just kind of hunkered down and so let's fight through this, and let's figure out what we can do. So when we come out on the other side, we have an even better platform that's even more user friendly and has more impact for both renters and owners. So again, sometimes things are out of your control, but you got to keep fighting through them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like the requirements that were put on hotels and stuff, even as they started to open up, right, what they couldn't do and all that. I imagine that might have been a benefit for you, because for you're probably more like homes and things like that, where there's not so many people in one building, right, that you have in hotels. And with COVID, there's such a scare to people. They probably didn't want to be around a lot of people, where they're sleeping, where they're lodging. So
for sure.
What's been the biggest learning for you as a business owner?
So I've owned a couple different businesses, and I think there's a lot of things you learn along the way. And again, if I looked at probably the biggest one for me is persistence. Is you're going to encounter things that are difficult. You're going to encounter curveballs. The example I use a lot of times with my employees is, you're trying to hit a curveball in a snowstorm. You can't see it coming, and sometimes you just got to hang in there. And, one of the things that I've learned, both working in businesses, consulting small businesses, and in some cases investing in small businesses, is that grit that comes with it, the ability to kind of fight through those challenges. There are very few examples where you kind of turn the lights on and it takes off like a rocket ship. The reality is it has ups and downs. And, again, not to take too many baseball analogies, but it's, that keeping that even keel when things are tough and challenging. How can you be creative? How can you be more resourceful? How can you leverage your contacts? When things are going great, kind of staying humble and keep plowing ahead and keep thinking ahead. And a lot of that is just grit and persistence. I think part of that is surrounding yourself with good people. Whether they're partners in your business. We put together a board of advisors, lean on them, ask them for help. If they're in a situation or if they've had experiences that you don't have, how can you use those to benefit you and your business? And so, again, I think, the biggest thing that I've learned is, there is no overnight successes. It's a lot of ups and downs, and you just got to, in many cases, fight through, and sometimes make, some tough decisions in terms of how you can redirect your business, how do you focus on your business, or what you do with your business. And that's all predicated on, just being open-minded and thinking through what your options are, and really being persistent and showing some grit.
Yeah, that's some great comments there. Surrounding yourself with good people, not only good people, but people that will tell you the truth, not what you want to hear, right?
For sure.
And that's kind of hard to find sometimes. And, business ownership is such a lonely place sometimes. I talk with business owners all the time. They go into business because they want more freedom, right? And they want to think they're going to make more money. And man, what happens, have more time to themselves. What happens is just the opposite. Typically, they're just working their tail off to make it, working 16-hour days or what have you. And a lot of times paying themselves less than what they were earning as an employee. And so, it doesn't always have to be that way, but typically it is. And so having those people around you is super important. So what have you learned about yourself during your journey as a business owner? Not just business, but the other businesses that you've done.
Yeah, I think you touched on a little bit too, in terms of just, having good people around you, but also kind of being able to, in my opinion, have some balance. You talked about the 16 hours. I have a family. I've had a family with my, young kids when my first business was launched, and being able to balance, not only family obligations, business obligations, investor obligations. I mean, there's a lot of things along the way that, if I looked at my younger self, I would provide some guidance and wisdom. And there are some times where you got to, really balance and prioritize yourself, make sure you're taking care of yourself, your health, and getting enough sleep, and really being balanced yourself, where you're not just, and you're absolutely right. I mean, the path to entrepreneurship, people say it's lonely at the top. I think the reality is there's there is some freedom aspects to it, but there's also, that pyramid, the numbers get fewer and fewer of people that you can count on that are in your situation, that you can get guidance from. So, having some good mentors in your corner. I've been fortunate. My brother is a very strong professional. He works in corporate America. I have another board member, and I can pick up the phone and call them and say, "Hey, we're struggling with this. What can we do about this?" And they'll give me, as you said, they won't sugarcoat it. They'll give me very good feedback in terms of what to do, and that's all helpful. But again, I think it starts within, and really, as you go and plow into anything 100%, if you have other obligations, be able to balance that and make sure you're not overwhelmed and overconsumed. Give you an example. My first business, and I still remember this, and I share this with every entrepreneur that I mentor, is I was my oldest child was about 2.5, maybe 3 years old, and I was pushing him on the swing, and I remember he just kind of stopped me, and he was only 3 years old. He's like, "Daddy, what are you doing?" Like, my mind was a million miles away, and it just kind of hit home. Be in the moment, focus on that 3-year-old at that time, have fun swinging with him, and not be thinking about a million other things. And that's hard to do. But the good people in business, the most successful that I've seen and that I've kind of used as mentors, they're able to balance those things and make sure that they know what priorities are the most important to them, and then at the same time being able to balance the demands of their business, investors, and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times I'll say, you talk about work-life balance or work-business balance. It's almost like work-life integration. I mean, you got to be able to integrate that properly. But and what a great comment about you're pushing your son on the swing, because it's not just about being there as a person; it's about being present in the moment. And yeah, what's the future look like? And what do you see as the main challenges moving forward for college weekends?
You look at just the industry as a whole, you're probably seeing two different things that are happening at the same time. You're continuing to see hyper growth. So even though the industry was relatively new, 2009, 2010 timeframe, so between that and pre-COVID, I'll kind of put that in a bucket. You saw tremendous growth. I mean, super growth, fabulous growth. A lot of regulations were put in place, so it helped businesses become legitimized, tax structures. How do you pay local and state taxes, things like that. So a lot of those things have been put in place. And if you look at kind of the next decade, based on what I've seen, is that growth will continue, still double-digit growth, 10% plus for the next decade. So that's the good news. The bad, not bad news, the reverse of that is you do see in certain markets a lot of saturation. So in cases where you have a lot of people that have got into short-term rentals, either they're invested in one or they're maybe leveraging their home, although that's less and less. And so with that, you got to be able to stick out. Your listing has to be able to stick out. What kind of amenities are you providing? What kind of customer service are you providing? That's a huge one. And so my honest, candid belief is you're going to see a lot of folks that got into, investing in short-term rentals as, the Airbnb boom continued, and said, this is hard. This is hard. I'm not a hotel and I'm not used to managing that. So I think over time, you're going to see some of those, where you got these heavily dense, markets that have a ton of listings. So it's hard for renters to really stand out. I think you'll start to see that decline a little bit. And then the ones that are successful, that do market their listings, that do all the small things, make sure that, their listing is absolutely clean and, pristine and has great amenities. Those people will continue to monetize that and do very, very well. So I think you're going to see a little bit of a shakeup in the industry over the next 5 years, just because so many folks have got into it. But by no means is the industry slowing down. I think there's great opportunities for college weekends being a niche player. I think what we present, as I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, is we have kind of an all-encompassing one-stop shop philosophy. So we provide some great content, some ability to find what to do, where to eat while you're at a listing. So by focusing on a niche market within a growing industry, I'm excited about the potential for our business as we add new markets, as we add new college towns. We've also looked at and have started to add youth sports destinations, and really with that, a very similar demographic in terms of large influxes of people coming into, I'll use Myrtle Beach as an example, lots of softball, baseball games down there. And, same, large groups coming in, and people are looking for different options from hotels. So, as we continue to expand into the college town markets and grow by adding new college markets, I think we ultimately become, a good, strong player that is in a sizable niche, I'll call it. And with lots of upside. And then as we start to look at some of those adjacent markets, we're excited about it. I think there's good opportunities for us.
Yeah. What advice would you give to anyone thinking of going into business?
It sounds like a cliche, but do your homework and kind of go in eyes wide open. You take any business, you're going to have to roll up your sleeves. If you don't have the skill sets, so for example, you may have a great idea, but you don't understand finance. Maybe you don't understand marketing or digital marketing. Maybe you've never raised capital and you need to raise capital. Make sure that you go eyes wide open. As I've seen in some cases, don't try to be the smartest person in the room. Realize where your kind of blind spots are and where you can bring on. And again, it can be a mentor, it could be a board of advisors, it could be friends, colleagues, things like that. But really, just kind of understand that you're not going to be able to do all those functions. So you got to bring those resources on, and they could be employees. So I think that's probably the first and foremost, kind of eyes wide open. And then, as I mentioned, a couple of times, your ability to overcome adversity. When you get knocked down, your ability to get back up and say, okay, what are my options? And some of them may be tough decisions. Some may be, change your business in a different direction, but that's okay. Your ability to respond to some of the adversity that you are going to face. It's not if, it's when. I think is what separates a lot of different folks.
So is there anything you do differently? If you were to start this business all over again, what would you do differently?
I think, and this would be the other advice I give to entrepreneurs is capital. Cash is king. If you think you need 100,000, you probably need 10 times that, 5 times that. You think you need 500,000, double it. Because you just never know when the market's going to turn in terms of COVID or economic recession, things like that. And when those things happen, it's harder to raise capital. So when you have those opportunities to raise capital, and you may have the most beautiful spreadsheet projections in terms of what you think you're going to need more. And without question, I think every entrepreneur will say that, if they're honest with themselves, is, when I raise capital or while I'm raising capital, I should have raised more. And sometimes that does dilute you, but I don't think if that is your concern, you're going to get in situations where you're not going to have enough capital to hire that person that you need to. And I think if I look at our business, and that's been one of the challenges, we launched right around COVID. Well, we're also raising capital. No one was investing during the early part of COVID. So you run into those roadblocks that definitely can have an impact on your business.
Yeah, I mean, undercapitalization is one of the leading reasons why small to medium-sized businesses fail, in that 5 to 7 year time frame. So yeah, super important to do that. And I guess also as you're developing your business plan, and I think it's common for entrepreneurs to be at the beginning to have this, this great dream and everything's perfect, and they overestimate the revenue and they underestimate their expenses, and then they get themselves in trouble. So John, any offers that you'd like to include in the digital newsletter?
Yeah, sure. We are definitely growing new markets. So one of the things that we have had some fun with is to give out some swag. So as renters rent on our platform, we are giving out swag throughout the whole fall. So
Okay.
shirts, hats, things like that for first time renters. So good opportunity for them to experience our platform and help build our brand as well. So it's hopefully a win-win, and it's something that we're doing this fall.
That's well, John, that wraps up the interview. A nice job. Thanks so much for taking time with us today.
Terrific. I really enjoyed it, and again, I appreciate you having me on as well. So thank you.